Wait a second. DeSean Jackson just said he wants to come back and play for the Philadelphia Eagles this season? What year is it? I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome into the Thomas Mott Show late on a Thursday evening. This is an emergency Thomas Mott Show because I was just perusing Twitter, watching the horrific Thursday Night Football game, and then I came across a Sports Illustrated tweet essentially saying DeSean Jackson, quoting him, wants to return and play for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I went, what? DeSean Jackson wants to be a Philadelphia Eagle? What? Is this in 2010? And then you go through the actual tweet, you go through what he actually said, and oh my gosh, he wants to be a Philadelphia Eagle. Now, how likely would the Eagles be to actually go out and re-sign DeSean Jackson? Because the age is a factor, the fact that he's been injured throughout his entire career, but then you go through the idea of having him just as a sole punt returner, and it makes some sense. All right, let's just jump into the Sports Illustrated tweet that got me all fired up this evening. We'll throw it up on your screen. Quote, "Hell nah, I ain't retired. I'm a free agent and ready to go." This is with Adam Pac-Man Jones and Mark Kelly and the I Am Athlete pod. DeSean Jackson on if he is ready to retire from the NFL. The free agent wide receiver named the Eagles and the Packers as potential destinations. And again, this is just coming out here. I'm trying to get this emergency Thomas Mott Show out as quickly as possible. Here's my first impression on this. The very first thing I said when I read this tweet was, how old is he? Like, what year is this? How could you possibly imagine a scenario where DeSean Jackson would make sense on the Philadelphia Eagles? Now, I'm as big a DeSean Jackson fan as there was. One of my first Eagle jerseys was a DeSean Jackson number 10. The guy was one of the most electric players to ever play for the Philadelphia Eagles. But let's just pause for a second before you immediately go down and say, oh my gosh, Thomas, you're ridiculous. You've got to go get DeSean Jackson. Do you? Where does he fit on this roster? Now, there's an argument for kick returner, although it's a slim argument. But if you wanted to pitch to me, veteran minimum, he can be the fourth wide receiver on this team, and he'll be your full-time punt and kick returner, okay. I would do that, for sure. But you go through the depth chart right now, you're not playing him more. You're going to take away snaps from A.J. Brown? You take away snaps from Devontae Smith? You can take away snaps from Quez Watkins? Because Quez is probably a lot faster than DeSean Jackson is right now. Don't you go down in the comment section and refute that. DeSean Jackson, as we'll see, I'm not saying he's lost a step, but Quez is faster. Quez is much faster. And so the idea of signing him to be a legit contributor at the wide receiver spot for a third stint in Philadelphia, to me, makes absolutely no sense. But if you wanted to replace Covey as a kick returner and a punt returner, I would go ahead and listen to that. The main problem with DeSean Jackson, it's very simple. I mean, he came into the league back in 2008. How old were you in 2008? Let me think about this. I was 12. I was 12 when DeSean Jackson came into the league. I'm 26 now, okay? That's how long ago DeSean Jackson entered the league. And yes, he was electric. You go through the 2014 season, the 2013 season, 2016 with Washington, he still had 1,000 yards. He was fantastic. Then there was those 2 years in Philadelphia, which had so much promise. You remember those 2 years when he came back to the Eagles in 2019 and 2020? It was like the return of Action Jackson. It was like, oh my gosh, he's going to absolutely ball out. And then he played 3 games, had 9 catches. And then he played 5 games and had 14 catches. The guy can't stay healthy. I mean, literally, he cannot stay healthy. And even with the 2 teams he was with in 2021, he only played really in 4. I mean, he's played in all 16, but according to this, but really only started in 4, only had 20 catches for 454 yards. To me, as you go through his stint with the Raiders and stint with the Rams, the health is the big issue here and his actual ability to go ahead and contribute. I always say, and I've said this forever, especially on my Twitter account, @RealThomasMott, there are reasons why people are unsigned the further you get into an NFL season. It starts during free agency, right? The best players are signed in the first couple of hours of free agency, and then days kind of go by, and the picky players, wait a little bit, and then they sign places, and then by 2 or 3 weeks after free agency, if you're unsigned, there's one of a couple of things happening. Either you're washed, right? That's a very real possibility, or you want way too much money. It's either A or B. Either you're washed, you either have some sort of off-field baggage, maybe there's a C in there, or you simply want too much money. This is not 2 weeks after free agency. This is Thursday, October 13th. We're about to play week 6 of the National Football League. There's a reason why there's not an NFL team out there, and there are a lot that need a wide receiver who have not gone ahead and called DeSean Jackson. Now, maybe you can make the argument, well, he just announced on this podcast that he is coming back to the National Football League, that he's not retired. But you can't tell me that the Packers, who were mentioned in the Sports Illustrated tweet, who desperately need a wide receiver, they didn't sniff around to see if DeSean Jackson was available. Like, there are clearly teams that need wide receivers that could have sniffed around to go ahead and get him, but obviously have not. I'm not saying I would hate the idea. They signed DeSean Jackson tomorrow. I'm sure I could find a way on the Thomas Mott Show to come on here and be like, hey, this is a good idea. But you just cannot look at the Eagle depth chart, cannot look at the current situation that this roster is in and say, do we need to bring in another wide receiver? You can make an argument. Yeah, a running back would make some sense. And we talked about running backs during the Thomas Mott Show. Everybody's talked about running backs for Philadelphia to sign. Pass rushers, right? Brian Burns. That was a whole discussion with everybody this past week. Could you go sign Brian Burns or trade for Brian Burns? Sure, that's an option. Christian McCaffrey, right? Yeah, Robbie Anderson's name was floated around there, although I would not, no thanks on Robbie Anderson. But the idea that you would need to go ahead and bring in another wide receiver, one who has simply not been healthy through the latter portion of his career, and you aren't weak at wide receiver. That's the main focus. And it's not even like they need speed. Like, if you were right now sitting here with Alshon Jeffrey as your one and A.J. Brown as your two, or vice versa, right? Two big, physical, over-the-middle targets. Now, A.J. Brown can beat you over the top, but he's more of a possession physical receiver, then sure, you can make the case, all right, go get a speed guy, a burner to take off the top. If he plays 3 games, then that'll be enough for him. Get DeSean Jackson. You have Devontae Smith, who is extremely fast. I know he still is kind of a route runner, yards after catch sort of guy, but he can win over the top and has consistently through the first 2 seasons of his career. And you have Quez Watkins. What was Quez Watkins for? For me, if you really want to sign him as a punt returner, just wait till Devin Allen is ready. I know he's not ready right now, or else they would have brought him out, but hopefully each and every week they're working towards getting Devin Allen ready to be the punt returner. In the best case scenario, he at least would give you some speed and some explosiveness at your worst position group right now, and that is special teams and kick returner. Covey at least is sure-handed, at least has been for the first couple of weeks of the NFL season, but if you really are desperate for a returner, wait a little bit and then just go ahead and get excited whenever Devin Allen eventually is going to go ahead and play for the Philadelphia Eagles. So in the end, right, we can get excited about the Sports Illustrated tweet, and you're going to see a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people in blog sites talking about this very quote right here. I might be the first because this just dropped. You're going to see this tomorrow, and you're going to see a lot of people in Eagle Land be like, for sure, go ahead and get him. But you have to at least pause for a second, take a deep breath, put on your hat of reason, and go, do you really need to go ahead and get a guy who was drafted in 2008, who has not been healthy for the last 4 or 5 years of his career, and who is going to come to a position group and a wide receiver group that is already stacked? It just doesn't make sense. Plus, there is the argument, and we'll go ahead and finish on this one. I don't want to, ravage DeSean Jackson too much, because I do respect what he did as a player. There is that argument that he's a little bit of a... I hate to kind of call people on being locker room issues. I don't think he ever really was. That whole situation in Philadelphia was way overblown. But you don't want to disrupt the aura of this locker room right now. This is a very solid locker room. This locker room, they are locked in. There is no cracks in the armor right now in terms of this locker room. And if you bring in somebody who at least has a history of stirring the pot, you could create a little bit of unnecessary drama. Good locker rooms, they win games. They go to the playoffs. They win playoff games. Think back to 2017. There wasn't any sort of issue in that Eagle locker room. They were all feeling super good. They were locked and loaded, playing for each other, and it showed on the football field, especially when they face adversity. And so, while I'm not saying DeSean Jackson would come in and be a locker room problem, I do think that that's another issue, another reason on the long list of them that we just named as to why I would not go ahead and be interested in signing DeSean Jackson. Okay, that's just my quick little emergency Thomas Mott Show thoughts here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do, give the video and the show a thumbs up. Be sure to hit that red button down below as well. We will be jumping into plenty more content here as we approach Eagles and Cowboys. Maybe just sign DeSean Jackson just to beat up on the Cowboys one more time. Who knows? It's going to be fascinating to see the takes that come from this little tweet here and see if Eagle fans get really riled up because it is DeSean Jackson, or if they have some reason, like I think I've had tonight, to at least say, do you need a guy who is well over the age of 30, hasn't played consistently the past 4 years, and didn't even get signed by anybody by week 5, 5.5 in the National Football League? But we shall see if something were to happen. Obviously, Thomas Mott Show is here doing stuff almost every single day. All right, that's all that's all we have here on the Thomas Mott Show. A quick one. We'll get to more National Football League stuff tomorrow and a reaction video, right? Hottest takes of the week on a Friday, so stay tuned for that one. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.